This video is on the least common multiple. The least common multiple. So the initials LCM stand for least common multiple. Okay? So just a couple of definitions first. A multiple is the multiples of a number, or what you get when you multiply it by other numbers. So let's think about the number 2. So if I were to list the multiples of 2, well, I'd have to list the numbers that I get when I multiply by other numbers. Typically, we start with the number 1 and say, well, what's 1 times 2? Well, it's 2. Okay? What's 2 times 2? 4. 3 times 2? 6. 4 times 2? 8. 5 times 2? 10. 6 times 2? 12. If you notice, as we list the multiples of a number, we are flowing from left to right as if we were reading a multiplication table, because the multiplication table does show us what we get when we multiply a number by another number. So 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, 2 times 4 is 8, 2 times 5 is 10, and so on. So when we list the multiples of a number, we're simply listing all of the different answers we get when we multiply it by the different numbers. When we multiply it by 1, we multiply it by 2, we multiply it by 3, and so that's the multiples of a number. So the least common multiple is when you're comparing 2 or more numbers, okay? So the least common multiple of 2 or more numbers is the smallest multiple of all of the common multiples. So some numbers are going to have common multiples. We're going to have different numbers that we see in both lists. So with the least common multiple, we're going to pick out the smallest. So I'm going to do some examples, and for each example, I am going to go up to that number times 10, even if I don't need to, or even if I need to go further than that. Alright, so the first question, what is the lowest common multiple of 3 and 6? So the first thing you want to do is list 3 and 6. This is just letting you know which row is which, okay? So in your mind you want to go, well, what's 3 times 1? 3. 3 times 2? 6. 3 times 3? 9. 3 times 4? 12. 3 times 5, 15. 3 times 6, 18. 3 times 7, 21. 3 times 8, 24. I'm going to run out of room. 3 times 9, 27. And 3 times 10 is 30. So notice when I listed the multiples, I only listed the answer I got when I multiplied 3 by another number. 3 times 1, 3 times 2. So the multiples of 3 up to the first 10 multiples is 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, and 30. Okay? So now I'm going to list the multiples of 6 up to the first 10 multiples. Okay? So 6 times 1 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 3 is 18. 6 times 4 is 24. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 7 is 42. 6 times 8 is 48. 6 times 9 is 54. And 6 times 10 is 60. So what I've done here is, for the sake of learning purposes, I have simply listed the first 10 multiples of 3 and the first 10 multiples of 6. Now I'm going to look at what the common multiples are. Well, when I look at the top list and the bottom list, I see the number 6 in both lists. So 6 is a multiple that they have in common. I also see 12 in both rows. So 12 is another multiple they have in common. I also see 18. So 18 is a number they have in common, or a multiple they have in common. 24, I see 24 here, so 24 is another multiple they have in common, okay? And I see 30, 30 is another multiple they have in common. So for 3 and 6, the common multiples are 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30. And again, this is just the first 10 multiples. So the first 10 multiples of 3 and 6, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 numbers in common. But remember, we're looking for the least common multiple. The least common multiple is the smallest multiple of all the common multiples. So when we look at this list, 6, 12, 8, 24, and 30, we want the smallest number. That's going to be the least common multiple. So of 6, 12, 18, 24, and 30, 6 is the smallest number. So the lowest common multiple of 3 and 6 is 6. Okay? Let's look at our next example. What is the lowest common multiple of 10 and 15? And again, as you're learning, you may want to go ahead and list the first 10 multiples of each number and then compare the common multiples to determine the least common. So at this time would be a good time to pause the video and on your own go ahead and list the multiples of 10 and 15 up through the first 10 multiples. So the first 10 multiples of 10 are 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. The first 10 multiples of 15 are 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, 90, 105, 120, 135, and 150. Okay? So I have listed the first 10 multiples of both 10 and 15. So now I'm ready to pick out the multiples that they have in common. So I look in my top list and I see that the number 30 is both in the top and the bottom list. So they have 30 in common. They also, within the first 10 multiples, have 60 in common. And they both have 90 in common. And of the first 10 multiples, what they have in common is 30, 60, and 90. Remember, we're looking for the least common multiple. So of these common multiples, I want the smallest one, and that is the 30. So the lowest common multiple of 10 and 15 is 30. Okay, let's do one more example. This one has 3 numbers. Okay, so we're looking for the least common multiple of 2, 6, and 8. So again, I would suggest pausing the video and listing the first 10 multiples of 2, 6, and 8 and try to determine your least common multiple. And I will say that for one of these numbers, you're going to have to go beyond the first 10 multiples. But I'm just going to list the first 10 to begin with. Resume play after you've listed the first 10 multiples of each number. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 6,